content that we're going to be delving in today is the second part of the trilogy of tests presented by Diane Carnes. And I am Marquita Poinsettia from eLearning Services. And we have Diane Carnes, who's going to be the moderator for this session. Getting started with, all right, test pools. And here is Diane. Okay, what we're going to cover today is how to use test pools in Blackboard. One is to build them and why you should use them. And two is deploying them and making the selections and the different options that you have in using your test pools. Stop me at any time with detailed questions that you may have, because sometimes I'll make assumptions that you know a little bit about using tests in there. Now, last week, 2 weeks ago, we did cover how to use tests, and so you can reference back to those options because they're the exact same way that you deploy a test. But what we're going to cover today is very specifically is building pools and using pools. And then I will move away from the Wimba session, and you'll see my full screen using Blackboard. And again, this will be recorded, so you can take a look at, revisit the information there. What we'll cover is sources of pools, creating and editing the pools, and how to import them. Why use a pool, a test pool? The advantages of using a test pool is that you don't have the same sets of questions every single semester, and then same sets of questions within a single semester across all of the students. Therefore, they may have opportunity to cheat, unfortunately, is that if you have the same set of 10 questions across everybody, you could randomize them, but it's still the same set of 10 questions. And you're not exercising the opportunity to test in different areas across the set of material that you have in the course. So you want to make sure that you're enriching the learning of the student by using pools, adding in different types of questions, so you can have multiple choice, true and false, essay type questions and that. And once you've built this pool, you can use it from one course to the next each semester. You can also share the pool with fellow professors. And again, the why use the pool is that you have a collection of questions, provides you opportunity to randomize sets of questions. You can build pools that test only in the area of writing skills. You can build a pool that says, these are leadership questions. So whatever your specific areas are, you can build your tests, your questions, to fit within those categories. And then when you select from the pool to deploy the test, you can pull from these different areas in that, which is a great way to make sure that you have a quality set of questions. You can also use your publisher's material too. So for example, when I am working with an instructor, I'm gonna pause for a second and click on my share so you can see my screen. Move away from the slides. Back in looking at my screen now. So here's an example, and this is in my email, but I wanted to get the complete set of test pools that was offered by this publisher. So working with an instructor that teaches for this class, they wanted to use the test pools that were created. They were a quality set of material. They wanted to set up their tests so that they can randomize the types of questions that the students are going to get each semester. So I said I'm working with my contacts within the university that interface with our publishers. I made a request with a specific text and that I wanted Blackboard's content for that test material. This is the information I received back. So again, work with your contacts within your university for information to access your publisher's materials. You'll just need the name of the book, the ISBN number, and that. And what you'll get back is working with your course developers is a code, and that is what's used, and I load the test pool. So that's one example to get your test pool. Another example to get your test pool is working with the CDs or the DVDs that you get with your text from your publishers, and they will have on there the pool file that you can download, and then you can use that to import into your course. So those are two types of sources. Another source, you may have a cold, so every so often I unfortunately have to clear my throat. Using test pools also, you can build your test. So I just selected from my course tools, the test, surveys, and pools, and we're going to use just the pools area. You can actually build your own pool. So the same way that you build a test, you can build a pool. And this pool just means that you have a bank of questions that you're going to access and select questions from. When you have a test that you've set up, the difference there is that it's very specific. It's just those sets of questions that you're using. With a pool, you select from a set of a bank of questions to deploy to the student to use as a test, okay? So you set it up the exact same way that you do a test. It's a test pool, we'll just call it, and we'll call it an example. And you can edit the information in here that says this is a set of leadership questions so that you can identify what that information is. You submit, and you begin building your test the same way, your questions the same way. You can create the questions that you have right here, or if you have a bank of questions that you already have, you can find them within the set of information here. I'm going through these first sets of screens rather quickly, but I'll come back and spend more time in each of these. I just want to show the options right now. And this is what your screen would look like for selecting from. And you can upload questions that you may have, which is one of the examples I had given, is where you can select an import file to upload a set of questions, okay? I'm going to go back now to once you've identified that your questions are loaded. So let's assume that one of the things that I did is I did an import of a pool, okay? So the import of a pool, I'm going to kick it off, and I'm going to say I want to go to my computer and pick up the set of questions that I had shown you that were in my file. And I'm going to pick up one of these files. I'm not going to do it right now because I'll just get a repeat of all the things that I have in there. And I would just select the file that I want, highlight it, and I would click open. When it's all done, it will give me a message back, and I would click submit. And then I get a message in my email, and it's the email that's in your Blackboard that tells me it's complete, it's done. And when it's all done, what I see is this, is that all of those tests that were in that pool are loaded out here now, okay? These are all my pools that I have, and you see down here I have like 246 questions available in Chapter 2, and I have two textbook pools loaded out here, so that's why you see the two Chapter 1s. One's from finance and one's from a information systems class. And there's 213 questions from Chapter 1 that I can choose from now. So when I deploy this, which I'll demonstrate how that works, when I deploy a test for Chapter 1, I can say I want Chapter 1, all true and false, multiple choice, and essay questions. And I want a total of 20 questions. And what I'll do is randomly select from the 213, 20 questions. And also say, I don't want to give the very specific questions that I've selected, like going through and I'll take question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way through 20. I can say, each time that this test, with my options, each time that the student takes this test, I want it to randomly pull 20 questions from this bank of 213, so therefore the students each get a different test.
There's a question from Matt. Do all publishers do this?
So the question was, do all publishers provide this type of information? No. The bigger ones do. So like the McGraw-Hills, the Pearson, and there's a couple of other big ones also. They do more. The private ones that don't create all of the large publications that we have, they don't. So the first thing would be is to check with the publisher if they provide test banks. Any more onto that question?
Yes, that's it.
Okay. So no, they don't all do. But one of the things you can do is work with fellow faculty members that teach this class also and put together a session of the types of questions that you want to ask and build from there. keep adding. Every semester you should add more questions. I mean, it's a good practice, not just keeping the same set of 20 questions semester after semester. Add new ones in as you move along in the course. Rephrase some of the questions even, and get a double, back-ended question on there to verify that they really understand the information on there. So, are you referring to that when you are teaching, say, in the summer, and there's only 10 weeks, you may eliminate some of the chapters?
Well, not eliminate, it's just a matter of whether they go on the midterm or the final.
So what you can do is just redeploy that midterm. So with a pool, what you have is all of those questions in the chapters available to you. And I can show you in a couple seconds here is how you end up selecting for your midterm. You can tell it which you can set up which chapters you want. And so you can have a summer midterm. You can have a fall midterm. So you don't have to stick with just one type. You can build multiple types. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
All right. So here we have all different types of pools to select from, and you see that it goes off to 5 pages here. So just to recap, pool is something that you should use to build a bank of questions that you can randomize and pick from to build your weekly test, your chapter test, build your midterm, your final exam. And this is available then to the students where you won't have copying taking place where they can fit each other's questions, have the same set of tests. You can pull from the information that's provided by your publishers, or you can build these questions yourself. Okay? We'll go back one step, and I'm going to enter test now. I want to build a test using my pool that I've just created. I've imported a pool, or either I've typed in all of my questions that I want in that pool. So we're going to build a test. Okay, so this test example using a pool, and you can come back later when you're building options to provide the direction. Instead of creating all of my questions, I'm going to reuse questions, and I'm going to create a random block of questions first. Okay? Using that option, the random block, is going to go to my pool. It's going to list out all of those pools that I have. Now remember, when you load a pool, publishers typically will break those pools into chapters. So you have a full set of the textbook information to select from, but they've broken it into categories. So categories would be the chapters. In this one particular text, they broke it into a category of these are hardware and software questions. These are network questions. These are database questions. So they can pick from. So say for your final exam, you may want to use these types of tools that they've provided. So here I can say I'm creating maybe a midterm exam, and we've covered chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I can say I want chapter 1, I want chapter 2, chapter 3, and I want chapter 4. Part of this. I'm going to submit. I'm going to come back to give you another. Okay, and oh, sorry, hang on. Looking for the rest of my screen. Here it is. Sorry, because the bank was so long. Usually my this bottom part of the screen, which is right here, lists right away. But I've got so many examples in there. It was very long. Sorry about that. So I've selected my chapters that I want at the top here, and I have to let it know what types of questions do I want. Do I want to use all of the question types that are in this bank, or do I want to use fill in the blank or multiple blanks? Do I want to use yes/no questions, essays? Do I have multiple choice? Okay, so we'll go with those three, and then I click submit. Came back and it says, I gave you 491 questions to choose from, but you only want to use 20 questions from this set. So right here, number of questions to display. We'll click on that. Okay, I only want 20 questions. And I want each of the questions to have 10 points on here. Okay? When I click submit, what's going to happen when you deploy this test, the students are going to receive 20 questions of those three types that we selected. And each time that the student clicks on to take that test, it's going to pull 20 questions from the set of 491. Everybody clear on that? I click submit.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I click OK. We're done. And at the end of my sample here, go in and take a look at what that looks like. Okay? And what it's telling me is that I have 20 questions right here, and it's pulling from a random block. And what I should have done was just 10 points, or excuse me, 5 points on there. But I can fix that now because I made a mistake. I only wanted to total out to 100, but I have 20 questions pulling from a block of 491, and students are only going to get 20 of them. So I made a mistake. So what I want to do is select all of my questions, and I only want it to be 5 points. I'll make an update. Okay, so now it's 100 points, 20 questions. Okay, so the students are this test is now ready to be deployed. Okay, so we just click on OK. And then when I come to the assignments area, create an assessment, which is a test, because they have a long list of them. Mine's going to be down at the end here. Test using example pool, submit. And I can give them the instructions. It says, 20 questions. It's always important when you're deploying a test to provide instruction to the students so that they can prepare appropriately for this test. So rather than just saying, here's your test, take it, you want to let them know their number of questions, how much time do they have, are you going to give them 1 hour to take the test, and that are you only going to let them see one question at a time, okay, or are you going to let them see all of it? So give them all of the parameters, and then also give them the example that says, that helps them with prepare ahead of time. Once you start the test, you must complete it. Once start it, must complete. And they're just cryptic notes, but you want to spell all of that out. And these are the points that you want to cover on there. And no matter what options you choose down here for time and maybe date release of these, you always have to click on make the link available. You get several calls usually when the tests are ready to be deployed and people have selected on only this display and after, but they haven't clicked on make the link available, and then the test is not available. So make sure you do that. Do you want them to have multiple attempts or not? Depends on the test. And good setup for tests is if they're midterms and finals, typically the standard is 1 attempt. The same way that you simulate in the classroom. I've handed you the document, the piece of paper. You're ready to take the test. Once you start it, you must finish. You can't leave the room and come back in and start it up again. You must finish once you start. So it simulates that. When you're doing quizzes, a good practice may be to give them at least 2 attempts. Because quizzes, if you're doing those weekly, are to help to reinforce specific points that you want the students to pay attention to in the chapter and measure that the learning has taken place on there. Course completion is once you've started the test, you must complete it. You can't back out of it and come back into it later. How much time do they have? 1 hour. And I believe at least Ben and Matt are aware of is that the student, once the timer is set and the timer starts displaying for the student once they started taking the test, it does not stop them after 1 hour. The student can proceed past the 1 hour. So when you grade the test, you can look and see the test information how much time that has taken. And that's something that we'll add in as a summary next week of the things that we've covered for the past 3 weeks with test pools and surveys of about grading tests. You can set it up so that it's released at a specific time. Is there a question?
Yes, I understand.
Go ahead.
My understanding, sorry, I let the button go, sorry. My understanding is some of the students have trouble with their exam submitting it because the timer is covering up the submit button, I believe.
When students are using Internet Explorer, that is a definite issue with IE. Suggest maybe in the instructions that we strongly suggest they use Firefox or Chrome. And also there's a little caret underneath the timer that they can expand or collapse. Help out?
Absolutely, thank you.
Thanks, Martita. And again, when we were setting up the instructions for taking the test up in this area here, that would be another item to share with the student is verify the browser that they're using. And you may want to give an example of maybe putting in the icon of what this should look like for them while they're doing that. Okay. So coming back here, so that's another item that you'd want to put in your instruction area to help the student pay attention to those pieces of information. It should help, it won't eliminate, but it should help minimize the number of students that are having problems with taking the test. Another good point, too, is when you start your course and you know you're going to have online tests, online quizzes, just provide an example to them in Module 0 or at the very start of the course to verify that everybody understands, they know how this works. You can build a sample test for them with these types of parameters that you plan to use and help the student to see successfully how they can complete these tests online. You want to include your test to be scored in the calculations of the Grade Center. Many of our publishers, when they provide you with test pools and test questions, they also provide you with what that correct answer is. And that's what these are options are here. So when you are building your test, you can set up what the correct answer is in the test. So once the student has completed their exam, they can go back and look and see the results and then see what that right answer should have been. This works well for feedback to the student. The feedback option is where when you are grading that test, so for example in the essay area, or just overall feedback to the student, when they click on their My Grades, they will see the feedback that you have given them for that test, that you've typed in that text box when you finish and complete the grading. And then also you'll want them to see their submitted answer. The quality feedback for a student is to provide them what their submitted answer was, what the correct answer should have been, and feedback as to why their answer was right, wrong, how well they did across the test. And you can also choose all at once, one at a time, prohibit them from backtracking or randomize your question. I would also suggest, too, we're having a side conversation here, is that if we could go back to Blackboard, it would be great to have the option that I've seen in allowing another attempt, is to have an option that says allow another attempt.
I think
Once
that's
it's at the zero, that'd be great.
That along with the forced completion.
Yeah.
You know, right now it just lets them go ahead and the timer going, but you have to go in and do it. If you set up forced completion, it will force it. That's good. And submit it.
That's good to hear.
That time.
Great.
That's in, I think, service tax 7 or 8.
Okay, which is what we're working on over the holidays.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks, Martina.
I have a question.
Yes.
If they do the question, if it's set up with questions one at a time, they can't go back into the test. Is that correct?
Correct.
If you prohibit that.
If you prohibit the backtracking, they can't go backwards in the test, they can go forward.
So a student would also not be able to go back to a previous question if they had a change of mind or the answer came to them or what?
If you are using, you can do one at a time, and if you also do prohibit backtracking. So those two together will show one question at a time, and the student cannot go backwards and change an answer, or if they skipped a question, they can't go back and answer it.
So if I want to allow them to go back, I just don't check prohibit that.
Correct. So they would still get the one question at a time, and if they skipped forward a couple of questions and then wanted to wait and come back, then they can still do that with doing the one at a time. Okay?
Okay.
So we've created a pool. We have the 20 questions, and it's randomly selecting from the 400 plus set of questions. We set up all of our options, and we're going to submit, and that test is now going to become available to the students. And I've set it up in the assignments area, so it's right here, and we'll simulate taking it. And so we'll begin the test, and we've set it up so that you know, and the options are repeated. This test has a time of 1 hour. Multiple attempts are not allowed, and they must complete once they start it. And it's showing one question at a time. And so the student can advance forward in this area. Okay? And so, for example, this one here is which one's right. The following general journal entry is taken from the Journal of Hartwood Bookstore. Which of the following choices reflects how the entry will affect the company's financial statements? Which one do you guys think is correct? Ben will probably get this one right.
Yes.
I'll go with A.
A? Is that Ben?
Oh, no, Ben's
gone. Okay, we're going to go with A. Okay, and we're going to, I don't think I can submit because of you being, oh yeah, here we go, save answer. Okay. Set a separate page. Okay.
You can move forward.
So, and then it's going to give me the next question. Okay, so I'm ready. I want the next question now. It's only going to give me one at a time. Okay?
If you go to the double arrow, it should take you to the end.
Yeah, and then I can move forward to whichever questions I want. Okay? So this is how the student sees that. Now, remember, this is a random pool, set of questions, 20 questions selected from the pool. So the next person that takes this, I don't know what that one is, the next person that takes this, it should be different. Okay? So now I'm going to save and submit. It's going to tell me I can't. Well, there's 20, and I'm not a student in this course. Okay? All right? Tells me how much time I took in the test. All right? Let's go back to test full screen. Okay, so the test screen. And if I want to build a test again, I can just go back in and I start all over the same process again. And I can use those same sets of questions for a midterm, for a final exam. I can go in and pick only essay now. So the nice options that you have here is that you have a full set of questions to pick from. And what you want to pay attention to when you're building your pool is that you're covering all sections of the book, that you're covering learning, you're assessing the learning objectives. And I think, Matt, I know in architecture, in one of your courses, ethics was one of the areas they wanted to make sure that you're covering. Well, you could build a set of questions with ethics. And so when you deploy maybe your midterm, your final exam, or if you have a test maybe every 2 weeks, you can make sure one of those questions from the pool of ethics is included in there. You can make a suggestion that, you know, we have a pool of ethics questions that are across 4 courses that require teaching of ethics, and they can all use that pool to do this, and that can be assessed.
Great.
Okay. So we've talked about how to create the questions using the pool, how to import that information in there, how to edit your pool, and changing and updating your question settings. So those are the main areas that we want to make sure that you're aware of. The point being is that tools are a good thing to have. You do not have to have the publisher provide you with a pool. You can build a pool yourself. Keep adding questions and banking them over time. Any questions?
No, I think it's all pretty clear, Diane, and I probably will need to review this session to get it all done.
Okay, so reviewing the session is good. Meeting with your course developer once you want to start designing some questions, because there's an art to writing the questions so that you're assessing in the right area and that you don't have 2 to 3 questions actually mixed in one question. So if you're writing your own, it's good to pay attention to that. So you can contact any one of the course developers in e-learning service. And I know you're at architecture, and Lynn Watisha is a new course developer in our area that will be working with architecture. Okay. Well, that wraps up the Wimba Wednesday, the second part of the trilogy on tests. Come back, and next week we will definitely go into the last part of the trilogy. I feel like a Harry Potter series here. But there we go. Have a great week. See you next week. And Matt says thank you both. You are more than welcome. See you next Wednesday. Adios.